She announced, "I can't marry you. My heart belongs to my ex," into the microphone at our engagement party. I smiled, got it, thanked everyone for coming, and left her standing there with tears on her dress. Hours later, a name she'd forgotten returned to. There's something uniquely devastating about being humiliated in front of 200 people who are supposed to be celebrating your future happiness. I'm sitting here 3 days later, still processing what happened, and I keep coming back to one thought. Maybe this was always going to end this way. I'm Dylan, 28, and I need to give you some context that's probably going to sound weird, but it's important for understanding how we got here. I've been engaged to Sophia for 6 months. She's 26, comes from one of those old money families where the furniture costs more than most people's cars. Her father owns an investment firm, they have a house in the Hamptons, the whole thing. I, on the other hand, grew up in foster care after my parents died when I was 8. Here's where it gets complicated. I'm not poor, not even close, but I've spent the past 3 years of our relationship letting Sophia and her family think I am. I started a tech company when I was 23. Made some smart investments, reinvested profits, built it into something substantial. Without getting into specifics, let's just say my net worth would surprise people who know me as the quiet guy who drives a Honda and wears jeans to nice restaurants. But I learned early that when people find out you have money, everything changes. Suddenly you can't tell if someone likes you or likes what you can provide. So I keep it simple, rent a modest apartment, live below my means, and watch how people treat me when they think I'm just getting by. Sophia met me through mutual friends and knew I worked in tech, but I let her assume I was struggling. Her family tolerated me because she seemed happy, but I could tell they thought she was slumming it with the poor orphan boy. The engagement party was supposed to be at her parents' country club. 200 guests, open bar, the works. I offered to help pay, but her father insisted it was his responsibility. "Don't worry about it, son," he said with that condescending smile I'd grown used to. "We've got it covered." Everything was going fine until the toast started. Sophia had been drinking, which wasn't unusual, but there was something different about her energy that night. Restless, almost manic. When her father handed her the microphone to say a few words, I expected the usual thanks for coming speech. Instead, she started talking about truth, about how important it was to be honest about your feelings, about how life is too short to live a lie. I was standing next to her, smiling and nodding like an idiot, having no idea what was coming. "I need to tell everyone something," she said, her voice getting louder. "I need to be honest about what's in my heart." That's when she turned to look at Colt, her childhood friend who was standing near the back of the room with the other single 20-somethings. "Colt," she said, and the entire room went silent. "I know this is wrong, and I know it's going to hurt people, but I can't marry Dylan when my heart belongs to you." The microphone picked up every word perfectly. 200 people heard her say that she couldn't marry me because she was in love with someone else. But she wasn't done. "Even if Dylan possesses my body," she continued, tears streaming down her face now, "my heart will always belong to you. It always has." I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, watching 200 people stare at me with expressions ranging from pity to horror. Sophia was sobbing into the microphone, Colt looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor, and her father was frantically trying to get the microphone away from her. I've never felt smaller in my life, or more betrayed. This wasn't just a private conversation that got out of hand. This was a deliberate, public destruction of our relationship in front of everyone we knew. When I finally found my voice, all I said was, "Well, that settles that. Congratulations to both of you." I took the engagement ring from my pocket. I'd been planning to upgrade it as a surprise, and set it on the gift table. Then I walked out while 200 people watched in complete silence. I've been staying at a hotel since then. Sophia has called 47 times. Her father has called 6 times. Even Colt called once, though I didn't answer. The weird part is, I'm not devastated the way I expected to be. I'm angry, sure. Humiliated, absolutely. But there's also this strange sense of relief, like I've been freed from something I didn't even realize was constraining me. Maybe that's the orphan in me. I've been abandoned before, and I survived it. Maybe this is just what happens when you build your whole relationship on a lie, even if it's a lie designed to protect yourself. I don't know what comes next. but I do know I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not to make other people comfortable. Update 1. I've been getting messages asking what happened after I left the party. So here's the update nobody wanted but probably expected. I spent Saturday night at a hotel downtown, mostly just sitting by the window trying to process what had happened. Around midnight, I started getting texts from friends who'd been at the party. Apparently, after I left, things got even messier. Sophia had a complete breakdown, started screaming at Colt about how he'd ruined everything by not fighting for her sooner. Her parents had to physically remove her from the venue. Several guests left immediately after my exit, which pretty much killed any remaining party atmosphere. Colt, according to my friend Jake who witnessed this, just stood there looking shell-shocked. When Sophia demanded he declare his love for her in front of everyone, he apparently said, "Not like this, Soph. Not like this." Sunday morning brought a new kind of hell. The voicemails. From Sophia. "Dylan, please, you have to understand. I've been fighting these feelings for months. I thought if I just went through with the wedding, they would go away. I never meant for it to happen like this." From her father. "Son, I know this is difficult, but perhaps we can work something out. Sophia is confused, but she cares about you. Let's not make any hasty decisions." From her mother. "Dylan dear, you know how dramatic Sophia can be. She's always had a flair for the theatrical. I'm sure once she sobers up and thinks clearly, this will all blow over." That last one especially pissed me off. 23 voicemails, and the best explanation her mother could offer was that my public humiliation was just Sophia being dramatic. Monday, I did 3 things that felt like taking my life back. First, I called a lawyer to discuss dissolving our engagement legally. We'd signed some papers when we got engaged related to the wedding planning and venue deposits, and I wanted to make sure I was clear of any financial obligations. Second, I called my assistant Elena, the only person who knows the full scope of my business situation, and told her to accept the Forbes interview request I'd been putting off for months. If I was going to stop hiding who I really am, might as well go all the way. Third, I blocked Sophia's number. Not because I was angry, but because I realized that every conversation we'd ever had about our future had been based on her fundamental misunderstanding of who I was and what I could offer. Elena, who's been with me since I started the company, and is probably the closest thing to family I have, was furious on my behalf. "5 years I've been telling you to stop playing poor," she said when I told her what happened. "5 years I've watched you drive that beat-up Honda when you could buy a Tesla with cash. And this is what happens when you let people underestimate you." She had a point. I'd been so afraid of being used for my money that I'd created a situation where someone could publicly humiliate me for not having enough of it. The Forbes piece is scheduled to run next week. It's about young entrepreneurs who've built substantial companies before 30. The headline they're planning: "From foster care to fortune, how one orphan built an $8 million tech empire." I haven't told Sophia about the article, or her family, or Colt, but they're going to find out soon enough what they actually threw away. The strangest part about all this is how clear everything seems now. For 3 years, I've been walking on eggshells, trying to prove I was worthy of someone who was secretly in love with someone else. I've been living like I had something to prove, when the truth is, I never did. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt anymore. I'm just done. Tomorrow I'm looking at apartments, real apartments, with the amenities I can actually afford. I'm done pretending to struggle financially to make other people comfortable with my presence in their lives. Update 2. The Forbes article went live yesterday morning at 6 a.m. By 6:47 a.m., my phone had exploded. I should have expected this, but somehow I didn't anticipate how quickly word would spread, or how dramatically it would change the entire narrative of what happened at my engagement party. The article was exactly what Elena had promised. A deep dive into my background, the company I built, the investments I'd made, and the current valuation of everything I'd created. The writer, James Morrison, had done his homework. Financial documents, business partnerships, even testimonials from clients and competitors. The most surreal part was seeing my story laid out like that. Orphaned at 8, aged out of foster care at 18, started his first company with $3,000 in savings and a laptop he bought secondhand. Today, Dylan crosses various business interests, are valued at approximately $8.2 million, making him one of the youngest self-made millionaires in the regional tech sector. I was having coffee and trying to mentally prepare for whatever reaction was coming when Sophia called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Dylan. Her voice was completely different from the tearful, desperate messages she'd been leaving. Cold. Almost suspicious. We need to talk. I don't think we do. I just saw the Forbes article. Okay. $8 million, Dylan. $8 million. Is there a question in there somewhere? She was quiet for a long moment. How long have you been lying to me? I never lied to you. I just never told you how much money I have. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Lying would have been telling you I was poor. I just let you make your own assumptions about my financial situation. For 3 years? For 3 years. Another long pause. We need to meet. There are things you don't understand about what happened Saturday night. I understand perfectly. You're in love with Colt. You made that very clear in front of 200 people. It's more complicated than that. I almost laughed. It really isn't, Sophia. You said my body might be yours, but your heart belongs to him. That's pretty straightforward. I was drunk. I was confused. I've been under so much pressure from my family about this wedding, and now that you know I have money, you're suddenly less confused. She didn't have an answer for that. The conversation ended with her demanding to meet in person and me telling her I was busy, which was true. I had 17 other calls to return, including several from business reporters wanting follow-up interviews, and 2 from investment firms that had apparently been trying to reach me for months. But the most interesting call came from Colt. Dylan, man, I owe you an explanation. No, you don't. Yes, I do. What Sophia said at the party, it wasn't true. Or it wasn't the whole truth. I waited. I've known her since we were kids. Our families are close. There's always been this expectation that we'd end up together eventually, but I never felt that way about her. When she got engaged to you, I was relieved. Relieved. Because it meant I could stop pretending there was something between us that wasn't there. I care about her, but not the way she wants me to. Then why didn't you say that Saturday night? Because she was having a breakdown in front of everyone and I panicked. I thought if I just didn't respond, it would all blow over. And now I've seen the Forbes article, and I'm starting to understand why she's been calling me nonstop since Sunday. We talked for another 20 minutes. Colt, it turns out, is a struggling artist whose family money dried up years ago. He lives in a studio apartment and teaches art classes to pay rent. When Sophia was confessing her love for him, she thought she was choosing poverty over wealth. Turns out she was actually choosing poverty over 8 million. The irony is almost funny. Almost. Her father called me this evening. Richard Whitmore, who spent 3 years treating me like a charity case, suddenly wanted to discuss business opportunities and family connections. Dylan, son, I think there may have been some misunderstandings about your situation. No misunderstandings, Richard. You understood perfectly. You just understood wrong. Perhaps we could meet for lunch this week. I'd love to learn more about your business ventures. I'll pass. Now, let's not be hasty. Family is family. We're not family anymore. I hung up. The weirdest part about all this isn't Sophia's sudden change of heart or her father's newfound interest in my business acumen. It's how free I feel. For 3 years, I've been performing the role of someone grateful to be included in their world. Turns out I never needed their world at all. Final update. It's been 6 months since the engagement party disaster, and I'm writing this final update because the story took some turns I didn't expect and taught me things about myself I probably needed to learn the hard way. First, the immediate aftermath of the Forbes article was exactly as messy as you'd expect. Sophia called me 17 times the day it came out, followed by 43 text messages that escalated from "we need to talk" to "you owe me an explanation" to "how could you humiliate me like this?" The last one especially got to me. I was the one who humiliated her? We finally met for coffee 2 weeks after the article, mostly because she wouldn't stop showing up at places I was known to frequent. The conversation was surreal. "You made me look like a gold digger," she said, sitting across from me in the same cafe where we'd had our first date 3 years earlier. "You made yourself look like a gold digger. I just stopped pretending to be poor." Do you have any idea how this looks? I publicly rejected a millionaire for a starving artist? I thought you publicly declared your love for Colt because that's how you really felt." She looked down at her coffee. "It was more complicated than that." "How?" That's when she finally told me the truth. Not the romantic truth she'd proclaimed at the party, but the real truth that explained everything. Her family had been pressuring her to marry someone with money and status. I didn't fit the bill in their eyes, but they tolerated me because she seemed happy. Colt was worse. No money, impractical career, wrong social circles. So she'd convinced herself she could learn to love me enough to go through with a marriage that would satisfy her parents' expectations. But as the wedding got closer, she panicked. The public confession wasn't about love, it was about sabotaging something she felt trapped in. I thought if I made it impossible to go through with the wedding, I could blame it on my feelings for Colt instead of admitting I was marrying you for the wrong reasons. And Colt knew this? Colt knew I was using him as an excuse to avoid a marriage I didn't want. That's why he looked so uncomfortable at the party. So the great love story that had humiliated me in front of 200 people was actually a panic-induced escape plan that had nothing to do with Colt and everything to do with her fear of marrying someone she thought was beneath her family's standards. The conversation ended with her asking if we could start over, now that she knew my real situation. When I asked what she meant by that, she said, "Well, everything's different now that I know you can actually provide the kind of life I want." I thanked her for her honesty and left. Colt reached out a month later with his own confession. He'd been avoiding Sophia since the party, but she'd been persistent. Finally told her he wasn't interested in a romantic relationship, never had been, and definitely wasn't interested now that he knew she'd been using him as an escape route. She offered to help me financially, he said during our conversation. Said she knew people who could help my art career. When I asked where she'd gotten money to help anyone, she said she was working on getting back together with you. So even her attempt to win over her supposed true love had been contingent on reconciling with me first. The family situation resolved itself predictably. Her father called twice more about business opportunities, before I told Elena to inform him that I wasn't interested in mixing business with people who'd treated me like charity for 3 years. Her mother sent me a handwritten note apologizing for misunderstanding my circumstances and hoping we could maintain our family connection. I didn't respond. But here's what I learned that I didn't expect. Hiding my wealth hadn't protected me from people who cared about money. It had just attracted a different kind of person who cared about money. Sophia didn't love me or not love me because of my bank account. She was trying to solve a problem about her future security, and I was either an acceptable solution or I wasn't. My actual feelings, my personality, my character, none of that mattered in her calculations. The money was always the point. I just hadn't realized it. 6 months later, I'm dating someone new. Her name is Rachel. She's a veterinarian. And she found out about my business situation on our second date when she Googled me after seeing the Forbes article shared on LinkedIn. Her response was to insist we split the check for dinner. "I need to know you're interested in me, not my financial opinions," she said when I tried to pay. "We've been together 4 months now. She makes her own money, pays her own bills, and has never once asked me about investments or business opportunities or what kind of house I'm planning to buy. Last week, she made me laugh by saying, 'I'm glad you're successful, but I was already interested in you before I knew you could afford to spoil me. Don't start now.' That's when I realized what I'd actually learned from this whole experience. The problem was never whether to reveal my wealth or hide it. The problem was being with someone who saw me as a means to an end rather than an end in myself. Real love isn't about what someone can provide for you. It's about choosing someone and continuing to choose them, regardless of what they have or don't have. Sophia never chose me. She chose what she thought I could do for her. And when that didn't seem like enough, she looked for someone else to choose. When she found out what I could actually do for her, she wanted to choose me again. But love isn't a business transaction. You can't withdraw your selection and then resubmit it when better terms become available. I'm grateful for the public humiliation now, as weird as that sounds. It forced me to stop hiding and start living as myself. It taught me the difference between being loved and being needed. And it freed me to find someone who chose me when she thought I was successful but not wealthy, and who keeps choosing me now that she knows the full picture. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the thing that saves you from wasting more time on the wrong life.